Instead of talking about what you should be doing in the future, let's take a look back at the past. You may have wondered at some point, with all of the guides Divine has made and all the advice he has given, where did he learn how to merchant? Well, I'll tell you. I learned from this guy on Tutorial Island. But in all seriousness, I have no background in economics or anything, and the only thing I trade besides RuneScape items is Bitcoin, as traditional finance sickens me a bit. Without any background in economics, I still managed to get to the point where I am today by observation, research, trial and error, just like many of you taught yourselves how to merchant. We each have our own stories on how we went about it. Some people only just got started, while others have been around for over a decade. This video is about our merchanting stories. Hey guys, it's Divine from Merch.com. I'll tell you about how I started merchanting up until the release of the Grand Exchange for those who are interested. Let me know of your merchanting story in the comments too. I'm really curious to read how you guys began, and I would love some good old nostalgia. I personally started merchanting around 2003 or 2004, I'm not entirely sure. So it means I'm not one of those guys who got lucky by already owning a lot of rares from the moment they were dropped from holiday events. My dream outfit back then in free-to-play was full Saradomin armor. I started out by fishing lobsters for it, but soon got tired of the long banking trips from Karamia. I trained my woodcutting level so I could cut yew logs instead, which I had seen people sell at a pretty good price. Back then I simply assumed that there were fixed prices for all items and nobody bothered with trading for profit. I just thought that people only played the game. It didn't take very long to get to the woodcutting level, but then when I finally had my first 1k logs, super excited to go sell them, someone kept trying to bargain with me and ended up trying to scam me. He laughed, called me a poor noob, and told me to go cut him some more logs. I guess you could say that he created a merchanting monster, but if he hadn't, I'm sure someone else would have. Now instead of sticking with woodcutting, I began to flip all kinds of items. I especially liked flipping treasure tile items and buying cheap stuff from bank sales and reselling it. By the time I could afford full Saradomin, I didn't care for it anymore and I wanted more. This was the best gear in free-to-play though, so I decided to get members and look for items to flip on there. Now as I had admired the Saradomin, Zamorak and Gothic set traders at Varrock Bank, I began to look for the biggest traders and members. After quite a search, I ended up at the rare spot at Falador, and I remember talking to two guys there that made me realize I was way behind and really wasn't going to be trading rares in that spot there. So I decided to stay away instead for a long time until I was more experienced. Now as I knew there were dragon items in members, and those were supposedly kind of the best in my eyes back then, I looked around for the dragon plate body as my new goal, but I found out that there was no such thing in members. So instead I had to settle for the dragon chain body as my next goal, which was worth dozens of millions back then. I started flipping a bunch of items in bulk like cannonballs, glories, blood runes, unidentified herbs, rune arrows, and much more. I quickly noticed that some of them would go up for certain updates, but as I hadn't played much in members yet, I didn't really understand what would be affected by an update. I then decided that I would get to know as many aspects of the game as possible so that I could merchant better. After a lot of skilling, questing, reading guides and more, I really got into barrows and playing Castle Wars, which were both insanely popular back then. Those are some of my fondest memories of the game. Now this made me move into flipping whips as well as barrows and infinity items and sets. And thus far I had been standing around for hours and hours advertising buys and sales, and I really began to long for some variety beyond just another different item. I then began to think of all kinds of things I could do. One of them was selling items in bulk to top players as they were willing to pay a little extra if you came to their world and place. Another was buying out my competition, so I was the only seller. I started doing this as I noticed that sometimes there would only be 2 or 3 sellers for a certain item. I began to wonder how much profit I could make if I would buy their items too and be the only seller. But as I bought their items, they would often stay and rebuy cheaper as they were basically flippers. As a result, I wasn't really able to sell higher as others that came over could sell at the normal price just fine, while I kind of looked overpriced. Now that's when I decided to make a second account, on which I would sell items even higher than the first account. This made people buy from my first account as it seemed like a fair deal to them. It worked really well and made me a lot of my early money. I had long forgotten about a dragon chain body at this point and was looking to earn my first party at. This eventually ended up being the yellow party at around the release of God Wars, as I made a lot of profit from that update. Soon after, the Grand Exchange was released, and I guess you can say the rest was history. Ever since, I've been using the Grand Exchange to my advantage on pretty much a daily basis, and it's been the one thing that's kept me around all these years. To me, it offers the perfect variety I need alongside street trading, and that has kept me really interested in merchanting in overall. I hope you enjoyed the video. As mentioned before, I'd love to read your stories, so don't forget to comment below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all again next week for another video.